look, what people really want they want a service provider who gives them the ability to make payments, which if you're a small business is payroll and payables, things like that. They want a money market fund to basically earn interest. And they want all that to be safe. I mean, it's very simple. The idea that when you go open a checking account at a bank, that you are making an unsecured loan to that bank, that is not something that any consumer or small business understands. That whole model, I think, is completely obsolete and outdated. And what I heard so many people say, and I think this is not sincere, I think it's just because they hate tech, is that depositors should take it on the chin because somehow they made a stupid decision when they opened a checking account. It's like, are you kidding me? Listen, what do you want the process to be? You want consumers and small businesses, when they open a bank account, to have to review the financial statements of that bank, try to figure out all of their disclosures, where their assets are, whether they have toxic assets on the books. And if they don't do a good enough job doing that, if they're not smart enough to do that, then you want them to be disciplined. This is the word that I heard being used, is we need to discipline the depositors. Yeah. The depositors are not in a position to evaluate the balance sheet of these banks. That's what the feds are supposed to do. That's what the regulators are supposed to do. That's what Moody's is supposed to do. And you're telling me that a bank that had an A rating from Moody's the week before and had an FDIC seal of approval, that somehow they got it wrong and the feds got it wrong, but the customer is supposed to get it right? I mean, come on, that's ridiculous.
In related news, Chamath, I would like an airbag in my cars to protect my family, but I don't want to evaluate the airbag technology and unpack it and make sure that it's got the right.
Right. Can I finish the point, J-Cal? Well, J-Cal, let me finish the point. It's about consumer protection here. And I don't care who the depositor is. If the banking system is going down because the feds haven't done their job. I mean, Powell, 2 days before the bank failures, was testifying that he didn't see stress in the banking system. So either he was lying or asleep at the wheel.
Asleep at the wheel, like
and like I said, the feds had given the seal of approval to SVB and all these other banks. They had all passed the regulatory exams. And so to now put it on the depositor when the Fed screws up and the regulators screw up and Washington screws up by printing all this money and creating this inflation that we've had, again, out of all the 6 parties that you could blame, I just think it's the least culpable.
Chamath, should there be a service that provides no interest, but is just a custodian of money that is absolutely protected? Where is the bank vault product in the world? Does it exist? Because I can't seem to find it. Some people seem to say, I think Freeberg, you alluded to this maybe in the group chat, that if you have a brokerage account, that's kind of similar to what I'm saying, but it doesn't have it. I don't want any interest. I don't need any interest for putting this money in the bank for a startup. They're not in the business of making 1 to 5% and optimizing for that. I have founders who are now sending me 5-page memos.
If the bank can't use your money, they're going to charge you. So remember,
I want to be charged. That's the service I want.
But I think this is an important point. A bank is a service provider. They spend a lot of money building technology, having people that work there, providing service and infrastructure. So for the services that they're offering, if you're not going to let them use your money to make investments with your money and they can participate on that gain,
they have to charge you.
They charge you. And I think that's really
where that.
But Freeberg, they're not a service provider under the current laws. You understand how it works now is that what we're being told is that when you went to the bank thinking you were just getting a service provider and frankly, largely a commodity service provider,
you're getting a fund manager. You're getting an asset manager.
Yes, and you're being told that you actually made a risky investment decision. Think about that. When you opened a checking account, you weren't just trying to, again, use a vendor. You were actually making a risky investment decision. That's what they're trying to say. And you deserve to lose your money if you chose poorly, even though nobody else could figure it out. None of the experts could figure it out. None of the regulators could figure it out.
You should talk about the challenges of your system to someone who lives in Argentina. It's far worse in other parts of the world, and we've come a long way in the last 100 years. We talked about 500 or 600 bank failures on average per year in the 1920s. So I'm not saying that, hey, that's not the case, but there's always been to some degree risk when people are giving their capital over to someone else. And we've certainly made huge strides in progress. But I think, J-Cal, to your point, there is a point of privilege now that people are saying, I want to have a position where I know that my money's not going to get used, not going to get moved, going to be completely safe. In a democracy. And
what would you pay for that? What's the price, Freeberg? What would you pay for that? Because right now we're basically giving every crypto entrepreneur and zealot, basically the high ground because they could make this product. I would pay 10 basis points, literally $10,000 a year per million. Is that right? Yeah.
Remember when you thought Jeff Bezos was going to be president?
I still think it's a distinct possibility. Anyway, what would you pay for this product, Chamath, or like Bloomberg or Bezos?
I don't want to speculate on new products. It's kind of a dumb tangent. I think the thing that you're bringing up, though, is...
Dumb tangent. Okay.
Why doesn't a product like this exist? And I think that it was very well explained. It's that every for-profit business is in the business of making money, and there are physical costs that you have to bear. In the case of a bank, there is physical infrastructure, literally bricks and mortar, that go into making the branches. There are lots of people. There is lots of software. There's lots of complex back office and middle office things that banks have to do in order to accept money. That has a cost. So I don't see how it will be very easy for somebody to create a bank that just stores your money for you without you being charged quite a lot of money, unfortunately. I think that there has to be a different way to solve this problem. And I think that what we did after the great financial crisis was the regulators wrote down all kinds of new rules. But the crazy thing in 2008 were those rules were written on paper. And now we're in 2023, and these rules can be written in software. And so I think what it requires is some amount of tactical real-time intelligence that regulators need to have over those that they regulate. And I don't know why we're so afraid of demanding that the next time some of these complicated real-time laws are written in law, that they also need to get written in code. And I think that that's a practical solution. It should be the case that every bank that's supervised by the Fed has a dashboard that has all of the key levers that allows what you said, Jason, to happen, which is a real-time mark-to-market. Should those or should they not be disclosed to shareholders? That's a different discussion. But the regulators should have 100% transparency into how these organizations run because, as Sachs said, they are an enormously critical institution that, at best case, after this fiasco, what we've realized is very poorly misunderstood by consumers. And that, at the worst case, is being mismarketed to us. Yeah. And I think that shouldn't be allowed.
We're also missing the other side of the balance sheet. We haven't talked about it at all. But banks play a really critical and important role as lenders. Banks act as the channel for lending capital to small businesses, for lending capital to individuals to buy homes. It's the primary place where capital is provided to help fuel economic growth and prosperity, particularly in the United States, where we have such a liquid, fluid, and available mortgage market to support home buying in America. And the absence of, Jason, what you're talking about, having the ability to use deposits to make loans and have what banks have fundamentally been in this country for over 100 years, which is taking short-term deposits to make long-term loans and making sure that there's some degree of balance and availability of liquidity to support transactions. And ultimately, mortgage securities came out of the need to generate more liquidity by banks to support depositors. And obviously, there was all these inflationary things that happened in that market and bubbles that happened. But it's an important role that banks play. And the lending aspect of banks, if it gets stifled too much because we swing too far the other way, it can actually have a really adverse effect on economic growth and prosperity and the ability for people to afford homes in this country. So that's the other side of the coin on where things can go bad.